Okay, with us we have TimWayneMedvetz. He is an adventurer, former Hell's Angel motorcyclist, Mount Everest climber, and ballroom dancer, and he is also the founder of the Heroes Project. It's a program helping injured veterans summit some of the highest mountains in the world. Thank you so much for being on the show, Tim.
Thanks for having me in your cubicle.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. So your life has been anything but ordinary, from what I've read, from becoming a licensed scuba diver in Brazil to traveling across the U.S. on your motorcycle, and climbing Mount Everest. Where has this constant search for adventure come from with you?
I have no idea because I was born and raised in suburbia, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I have no clue. I've been to over 100 countries. I've ridden my motorcycle in probably half of those countries around the world, not just across America.
Wow.
And I've hung out with naked tribesmen in Papua New Guinea, to the Amazon jungle, to the Himalayas with the Sherpas, and so I have no idea. I mean, in the end, I'm just a small town kid from Jersey.
Yeah, just a regular white picket fence kind of
That's
home.
We didn't have white picket fence, but we had a creek at the end of the road.
Yes.
Yeah, we had the above the ground pool, and yeah, we had meatloaf Mondays and fish Fridays.
And you wanted more.
Yeah, my dad was worked for public service, electric and gas. As an electrician. Mom worked at the bank, and it was a real simple family, 9 to 5, blue collar, and had a great childhood. It was great, and so I think when I was 20 years old, 21, I went to Brazil on vacation. I was dating a Brazilian girl.
Of course.
And that when I got to Brazil, that was, I think, when it all kicked off, and I ended up moving there, lived there for a couple of years, and I think that kind of started once I got out of Jersey and New York City and realized that, wow, there's a lot more out there. And so, so who knows?
Incredible.
Yeah.
So, I've heard a little bit about your story of September 11th being a very special day for you, a very transformative day in many ways, than one. How has this day, or tell us a little bit about what September 11th was that day for you and how it continues to influence you today?
I mean, it's, always the big thing you always hear from people is that, well, where were you on September 11th? Where were you? And that's a real easy one for me, because on September 10th, which was a more rough day for me, like the day for me is always September 10th, 2011, not September 11th. And the reason why that's because I was in a motorcycle wreck that pretty much broke every bone in my body, and ended up in intensive care. And I woke up in the morning, and I remember the last thing the doctor telling me is that we might have to, remove your foot. It was just hanging off. My leg was behind my ear, and everything was just broken.
This wasn't from motorcycle
from the accident that night on September 10th. And so, the last thing he said to me, we'll probably have to cut your foot off. And I just remember yelling at him and saying, "You cut my foot off, I'm going to kill you. I better have a foot in the morning. You better be there, And then the drugs kicked in and out cold. And so I woke up the next morning, and I just remember opening my eyes, and I remember, this machine breathing for me. It was on life support. And I just kind of opened my eyes. The first thing I remembered was my foot. I was going to cut my foot off, and I just looked down, and I seen my toes. And so I was like, okay, that's good. I got my foot. He didn't cut it off. And then I said, okay, I'm in a hospital. I'm safe. I'm alive. And then I started looking around. All these doctors and nurses are in my room. And I mean, a lot of them. And I'm like, wow, they're all in here for me, And but nobody was looking at me. Everybody was staring up. And I couldn't figure out why isn't anybody paying attention to me? And then I looked and followed, and what they were looking at was the television. It was about 9:30 in the morning on September 11th, and they were all watching from my television in intensive care unit in Los Angeles, watching the towers coming down. And my first reaction, I mean, not to be callous or not, but I was just like, turn that crap off, man. I mean, I got my own problems here, turn that shit off. Not realizing, obviously, the extent of what was really happening.
No, but that's heavy,
it was surreal. I didn't really kind of grasp that how big of a tragedy that was when it was happening. Because you know, the morphine helped a little too. So, and yeah, so that's where I was on September 11th.
Hmm. Is there a connection to that day and your help that you do now with veterans?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what I learned from that day is that, I I I'm gonna die every day. Like I'm gonna die today. I'm gonna walk out of this cubicle here in your office in this radio show, and I'm gonna stand on the street in New York City, and a bus is gonna drive by, and boom, it's gonna run me over, and I'm gonna die. And that's what September 11th like put into my brain, and so that's where all the extreme sports and pushing the limit and throwing caution to the wind kind
It
of
gives you like
started.
a sense of urgency.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I had to, and I found that by pushing the limit and, pushing, to the period point of almost dying was very, rehabilitating to all of these Marines and soldiers that, were over in Afghanistan and Iraq, and everything comes along with a war, getting shot at every day, like you hear these stories from these guys, and I was never in the military, so I don't have these stories. I can't relate to them, but just yesterday, you're talking to Charlie Linville, who's going to Everest with me, and Charlie lost his leg and some fingers, and he was a bomb technician, and he remembers he's telling the story about the first time when he was actually on the front lines and the enemy was within like a couple 100 feet, and they were shooting at him, and there was this clay wall in front of him, and he gets feeling the dirt kind of hitting him from the bullets hitting, and all he kept saying was, God, I hope this wall is thick enough to stop these bullets, and like I can't even comprehend this, and I'm sure a lot of people listening watching the show right now can't comprehend that, like what is that? And so then all of a sudden, boom, you get injured, you come back home, and it's kind of like that Hurt Locker movie when that scene, if everybody remembers that scene when he's in the supermarket, like in the cereal aisle. And it was just like, how do you go from that extreme and that living that every day, waking up, and going on a patrol and not knowing if you're coming back. And then all of a sudden you're in the cereal aisle at, at Christie's,
like,
at Vons or, Pathmark. And so it's taken away from them. And so, then the PTSD and they're laying in the bed and they're missing a limb. And it's, you need to really truly rehabilitate them. You need to put them back in the battlefield. Unfortunately, they retire. And so it's hard to get that back. And so I found that mountain climbing, big mountains that kill people, is like another battlefield. And that battlefield on the mountains gives them back that feeling of, being a Marine again, being a soldier again.
Being on the edge of life.
Yeah. Again. And it's, you could just see it in their eyes, like we got in the helicopter to take off to the Everest region, and got in the helicopter, and Charlie was like, you get in, and sitting down in the helicopter, taking off. I kind of turned to him and I said, hey man, like when was the last time you were in a helicopter? And he just kind of gave me that look, like he started smiling, and he's like, the last time I was in a helicopter was when I was getting, helicoptered off the battlefield and getting blown up. And that was the last time. And he was, his leg mangled, his fingers blown off, not knowing if he was going to survive. He's in his helicopter. Now, fast forward a year and a half later, he's in a helicopter heading up to Mount Everest. So it was just like, he feels like he's a Marine again. And that's the whole mission of the Heroes Project, is to give them back, to put them back in the battlefield, to put them in harm's way, so they could truly heal themselves and feel like a Marine again.
Wow. So, incredible. Because you're answering a lot of my my next questions.
She has notes, by the way. She has notes.
That was an interesting story. I mean, do you ever get critics of, people coming back from war? You would think, some people would think like, oh, they need to be sheltered or, be home again, have a feeling of homeness again. But you're thinking the opposite. You're like, well, why don't we just put them out on the brink of life again? I mean, why do you think so many people don't have that understanding that that's what these veterans need?
I don't know. You know what? There's a lot of organizations out there that help the veterans, and I think it's all commendable, organizations that they're trying and they want to help our American returning, injured veterans. I think it's great, but
Mm-hmm.
you're not shoving that down my throat that, this guy who's, who used to be a bomb technician who was on the front lines every single day and he's missing legs and, he's going to go out to Wyoming to have some horse therapy,
Yeah.
or he's going to have some kind of like, some puppy dog
Mm.
that's going to be brought to his hospital bed and the puppy dog is going to, make everything all okay and soothe him and pet him. And he's
Yeah.
going to be, it's this healing dog program and all this stuff, and I'm knocking it. I just, maybe there's some guys out there that's right for them, but I don't really believe that that's can truly make him feel like a Marine again and put him back, to feeling like a man again.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't buy it. And you're not shoving it down my throat. And, it's all good stuff. But what we do is a little different. We're extreme,
Yeah.
at the Heroes Project. And when you watch our film on Kickstarter, if you go to Kickstarter.com and you type in the Heroes Project, or if you go to our website or our Facebook page, you'll be directed to the Kickstarter. And we have this kick-ass video on there that when you watch it, you'll get it. You'll understand the effect, the rehabilitating effect that it's having on these guys.
Mm.
And for me, my injuries is no comparison to what these guys have experienced and everything that comes along with a war. But I can certainly relate to getting your life back and being a man again, and feeling on top of the world. And for me, it was putting myself in harm's way, and that meant going to climb Mount Everest.
Mm.
And so I'm giving that back to them.
Yeah, cool. So in the training process, tell me a little bit about the training process of going to Mount Everest, and how do you sort of tap into that strength that they had at war? Maybe some of them come back and they're injured and they feel a little bit defeated. How do you tap into that strength again and for training?
It's real simple. You give them a team.
Yeah.
You give them a team, a climbing team, and it's just like being, in the war. It's like being in the military is that you have this brotherhood, this team, this brotherhood where, you love yourself, you love your brother more than you love yourself. And you're willing to give up and do whatever you got to do to make sure that, his life comes before yours. And that's what being on a climbing expedition and on a climbing team on a mountain that can kill you does, because you're relying on it. We're all roped together. He goes down, we're going with you, we're going to save your ass, and so that's, to answer your question, that's how you give that back to them. It's the teamwork.
And the training is, months.
Yeah, well, it's, the mountain is not the easy part, but that's not really, the end all. The real is the journey, getting there. Most of these guys are training. Charlie, we've been preparing for Everest for 2 years now. Training, like we just got back from Ecuador last week. We're down in the Andes training on these 20,000-foot mountains. We've been to the Sierras and we've been to, all over the Cascades, you name it. And so I don't bring anybody to these mountains, especially someone with injuries like they have, missing limbs. I don't bring them to any mountain unless they are completely schooled and, efficient mountaineers and have all the tools that they need, where they don't have to rely on someone else. They're completely self-sufficient. If the whole team died and fell off the mountain and they were left alone, they will know how to rappel. They will know how to make anchors. They will know how to survive, read avalanche dangers, all that stuff. And I make sure that with my team and the Heroes Project that we give that to them before we take them on that big mountain.
And how many of them come back for a second run at the mountain?
Well, Charlie, is one of them in particular. We've been successful on all of them with all the guys, except Charlie. And we had to cancel the expedition. We were up on Everest this past spring, and I don't know if people heard about it on the internet and stuff, but there was an avalanche that killed 16 Sherpas, and it was the worst day in the history of Everest, and we were there for it. And so, after all the smoke cleared and we rescued all the bodies, and it just it wouldn't have seemed right climbing the mountain. So I pulled the plug and said, hey, Charlie, we'll come back next year, and and we'll do it again next year.
Mhm.
And so that's why I'm here sitting on your radio show, because we need your viewers to go to our Kickstarter campaign and to raise the funds to get Charlie back to Everest.
Get Charlie back to Everest.
And that's the whole mission here, is getting Charlie back to Everest and completing our film, because we have climbed all 7 summits of the 6 summits of the world. That's on 6 different continents on the whole planet Earth. Every highest mountain on each continent we have climbed with a different injured guy. Guys missing 2 legs, 1 leg, 2 legs and an arm, fingers. I mean, really horrific injuries. And we've done the impossible all over the whole planet. And there's one left. And that's the continent of Asia. And that would be Mount Everest. And so we've filmed every single one of them. And so I have, hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage that, the most inspirational, motivational, tear-jerking. I don't care how tough you are. You watch these videos of these guys with missing limbs and everything they've been through in the war, and then you see them standing on a 23,000-foot mountain in South America.
Yeah.
It's I don't care. You're gonna tear up. You're gonna cry, and that's, I don't know about you guys listening to the show, but like, that's the stuff I want to watch.
Yeah.
Forget the Kardashians. You know what I mean? That's what I want to watch. I want to watch inspirational stuff. Our American, like, these guys are heroes. And they're the guys that are out there protecting our freedoms of this country. And I think it's every American's duty to let them know that we haven't forgotten about them. And so this film and this foundation is your listeners' way of getting involved and doing something, rather than just, hitting like on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
It's being a part of the film. It's donating, money, whether it's $1 or $5, coming to our fundraiser events that we do. We'll be here on the Intrepid on September 11th, 2015.
Okay.
And it's called Cycle for Heroes. And then we have another event that we do in California that's happening in April, called Climb for Heroes. And so you can come out and climb with the guys and hang out with them and support them. Yeah. And so I think we need to fix our own country first before we go and try and fix the world. And unfortunately, the over 50,000 injured veterans out there are not newsworthy anymore. It was 5 years ago. You heard about it all the time. Every channel you put on, it was something about the bombings and people getting blown up and all this stuff going on in Afghanistan. And you don't hear about it anymore. And so now it's, it's more important to hear about, all the other crap that goes on in the world. And you just don't, these guys are forgotten. A lot of them are. Yeah. And we're here to tell them that, no, we haven't forgotten about them. Yeah. So. Well,
on that note, I think everyone go on Kickstarter, help Charlie get to that mountain.
Kickstarter. I should have like a big banner.
Kickstarter.com,
The Heroes Project.
Kickstarter.com, The Heroes Project. Yeah. Get Charlie on that mountain.